This is our Google Sheets as an app creation tool with AI assistance, unlocking new avenues for diverse applications. We're going to go ahead and move into a case study. And this case study is equipment sign out. So we're going to do, I think, a fairly simple one, but super practical. And you can see if any of the tools and capabilities of this system apply to something you want to do. Maybe in your school, in your small business, in your office, maybe setting up some games or sign-up sheets or some feedback. There's many different things you can do, but in this case, we're going to look at equipment sign out specifically. We're going to follow the WWHBL process, which is first we're going to look at what is this case study? Why is the problem that we're trying to solve? What is it? How to create the app structure and the app logic, which we often call the framework. How to build the app step by step, and then finally launching the app and see how that works. Let's begin with the what in this case. So in this case, we have a what question. What's the context? Well, what we have in this situation is an office space, and this is at a university, but it could be anywhere. And you have some equipment. And this equipment could be some electronic equipment, some computers, for example, some keys to rooms, etc. But let's just go with this idea there's a computer, a PC. And people can come and borrow the PC from our office. And of course, there are many other pieces of equipment. This is just one, so we'll call this number one. And there might be 2 and 3, all the way up to 100 different things that can be borrowed. Now, one of the problems is that when people come to borrow the equipment, we need a way to sign out the equipment. So we need to know, who is this person? And when will they borrow this equipment? Maybe they'll borrow in the future, so we need to maybe reserve. That is, if somebody wants to borrow this for Monday, we don't want somebody else to borrow it for Monday, so we might have to reserve. Also, once it's borrowed, we need to say it's out, that you cannot borrow something that's already out. And then we need to also return the equipment. We need to get it back, don't we? Return it. So if we don't know who this is, how can we possibly get it back? Right? Do we have their phone number? Maybe we need their telephone number. Maybe we need their name. We would also like to know when the equipment will be returned. And if they're going to reserve it for the future, maybe next week, we need to know when that time is going to be. We have a lot of things we would like to know. Now, let's think about this for a minute. I think most people in most offices would just quickly try to solve this problem in a very straightforward way. How would they do it? They would have a sign-out sheet. They'd probably use a piece of paper. And this paper, they might post it on the wall, or they might have it at a desk. And they're going to ask something like, what's your name? And what's the date? And what did you borrow? So they'll have a piece of paper like this. The problem with that is it's not very reliable, number one. And also you need often to get the staff involved. So you need to have a person who's behind the desk, and that person is always checking. Okay, yes, check, you can do this, and check, you can take this. And this person would always have to maybe talk to the person who's borrowing it and say, who are you? Who are you? What's your name? What's your contact number? So you have to have a lot of communication there. What we would like to do is automate this system, make it so that the office person does not have to find this information out. They don't need to ask about when or where. We won't make any mistakes or miscommunication. But we do need to have a record of rooms when they will be used for equipment, when they'll be used, and then when they'll be returned. That explains the basic problem. Let me get a little bit more specific in this example. This happened at my university, at my department actually. And what happened was we had a number of years, many years before I went to work there, where, you have a desk in the office, a counter, I should say, and behind the counter you have a person who works in the office. And these people are very busy. But students are coming in, they come in the door, and they need to borrow many things. For example, they need to borrow keys for the classroom. They need to borrow remote controls for the AC unit, air conditioner unit. They need to borrow remote controls for the projector. Maybe for a TV that's in the room, they need to borrow that remote control. They probably need to borrow a PC sometimes. So you have a PC they need to borrow. That could be a notebook or something else. They also might borrow things like extension cords, power. Cords. There's just a lot of things they could borrow. And so what they would do is they would come in and have to talk, and they say, hello, I want to borrow the key for the classroom. And this could be 6 days, 5 days a week, 5 days, and it could be going on in the daytime and nighttime if you have some night classes. So this could be like 10 hours, and every hour students are coming in and returning things and borrowing things. Now, on this piece of paper, if you just have a piece of paper like this, let's say we have a piece of paper and we use this paper, how do we know that this equipment has already been signed out or isn't here or somewhere else? Well, it's chaos. Often the students will just have to check. The secretary will say, go to the cabinet and look, is the PC there? And they'll walk over and say, oh no, there's no PC here. And then the secretary would say, well, then the PC is already borrowed, sorry. Or sometimes somebody would say, I need it next week. And then what do? They need to take the PC out and hide it somewhere. So they're sure no one's going to borrow it by accident. And so this becomes very chaotic and out of control. Not easy to manage. What we want to do is have everyone have an easy time to manage this. And what does that mean? That means that the secretaries do less work, that the students coming in to borrow can see clearly what they can borrow and what they cannot borrow because it's already reserved or already loaned out. They can also return easily, and they can also borrow easily, right? We want them to be able to borrow easily and quickly. So the students would be happy because it's easy for them to do, and the office workers would be happy because it's less work. In addition to less work, I think we need to be reliable and we need to be trackable. This was one of the big problems they had, which was someone would borrow something, we're not quite sure who it was, and then the equipment would go missing and nobody knows what's happened. And they say, well, we can look at the piece of paper we have, but maybe somebody didn't fill out the piece of paper, or the paper is a person who borrowed it already. And they go ahead and they call that person up and they say, hey, the computer is missing. Did you borrow it? And they say, yeah, I borrowed it, but I brought it back. And the office says, okay, I guess I have to believe you. So this problem of things going missing, we don't know who's accountable. We also have a problem with reserving. Let's say a teacher comes in and says, I need this for a meeting we're going to have next week on Monday. Okay, that sounds good. And the staff says, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll have a PC for you on Monday. But then the teacher comes in on Monday and the PC is missing. Why is it missing? because a student came in the morning and already took it to a classroom to use for something else. And now the teacher says, hey, I thought I told you I needed the PC. And the staff says, well, we thought it would be here, but it's not. You can see this is all very confusing. Now, we tried to think of many ways to handle this, but in the end, we went ahead and used our Google Sheets and made a kind of interactive app with our Google Sheets in a way to solve this problem. And that's really going to be a great example, I think, of how you can do something like this. So that explains the why of this problem. I think we can sum it up by saying we need to make things trackable. I guess that's a really good word to use, trackable. We need to be able to track everything. Traceable, trackable, traceable, findable. Findable, I think is a good word, right? I think we need to make it easy for the user. And here the user is going to be the students that walk into the office that need to borrow the equipment. They're really the kind of customer we're looking at, the people we need to serve. And we also want to reduce staff load. We don't want our staff wasting all their time on this. Now, you may say, oh, it's no easy. It's no problem. It's very easy. Just have this piece of paper and the staff can take care of it. And yes, that's always going to be true. Your staff can always do what they need to do. Yes, there's no doubt about that. But the question is a question of time. The question is a question of efficiency, right? You have only so much time in a day. And if the staff is spending their time on tracing down equipment, finding equipment, talking to students, borrowing equipment, then they're going to be using up their time. And that means they cannot do other things that are important. So I think those are the two big things. We want to reduce the time load and increase efficiency for the staff. And we want to make sure that the equipment is trackable, findable, easy for users to use, and reducing the load on the staff at the same time.